Welcome to C Sharp. This is your course introduction. So here, welcome to the SD 104 Introduction to C Sharp course. In this course, you will be learning the fundamentals of C Sharp language. We'll learn the concepts of object-oriented programming and the solid principles. We'll learn how to connect C Sharp to SQL Server to get data from SQL, how to push data to the files, and how to sort data with C Sharp. This course is intended to give you a well-rounded knowledge of C# programming and give you the skills to get started as a general-purpose programmer. This course will give you the skills you need to move on to the next course in SD 105 ASP.NET. So a lot of interviews ask you about this too. What is ASP.NET? Do you guys have experience in that? Where we will hook up C# to the web and to begin building web applications. To get the most out of this course, we recommend you dedicate at least 4 hours per week to review what you learned in class and practice your skills. Do not miss a class and do not fall behind completing assignments. If you miss a day, you miss a lot. So I recommend you guys dedicate at least 20 hours just because it's a lot of learning and stuff like that. So key terms, you guys should know this: lesson files, additional resources, and further learning. Those are going to be on those little Excel data box, tables. So why C Sharp? Why do web developers need C Sharp? So to understand where we are, let's take a look back at what we learned so far. In the first course, we learned about front end, which is UI, the user experience, user interface, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript to build web pages. Those should be easy, except JavaScript, because then you'll have to learn about frameworks like Bootstrap, jQuery, Ajax, all that stuff. So in the second course, you guys learned about the backend layer, which is the database, very important. Those are SQL. And this course is all about the middle. We aren't still quite ready for the fire up our ASP.NET Power Web Server. First, we need to learn the language on our web servers recognizes, and for us, the language is C Sharp. It probably seems right now that we learned the front end feels completely disconnected from what we learned in the back end database. This course and the next course will be the bridge to connecting everything together. However, before we can start connecting everything, we have to learn the ins and outs of C# language. So fun fact, a couple of the companies offered me a 6-figure position doing this type of stuff, and they asked me if I know C# and JavaScript and some of their frameworks, which includes like Knockout.js and some kind of other frameworks I can't remember as well. So here's the stack. Here you have front end, user interface and web pages, user web browsers, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Here you have your back end, your middle tier, web server and ASP.NET and C# code. And here you have your back end data layer, SQL Server. So now Amazon has taken these two parts right here, and they just have their type of own program, which is called AWS, and that's pretty interesting topic to learn. So C# is much more than just a language used by ASP.NET web servers. It's a full general purpose programming language. C# can be used in web servers, desktop applications, and video games, virtual reality, business applications, and more. This course will give you the fundamental principles of C#, which can prepare you for the many job opportunities as a software developer. You may find that if you didn't like the web and HTML or SQL, you might enjoy all the possibilities of the C# learning. So should you learn C# in 2019? So let's go ahead and watch this video.
All right.
Playback occurred.
All right. Should you learn C# in 2019? I'll get to the point. You learn C# if you want to interact with the Microsoft stack. You're going to be writing clients, thick clients for Windows 10. If you're going to be building web-based apps or web apps that are going to be interfacing with back-end Microsoft technologies, you definitely want to do C# and ASP.NET. And you learn C# if you want to get into game programming with Unity as an example. C# is a modern language. It's a very nice language. It was modeled after Java. It's kind of like Java++ if you think about it. So they looked at Java, Microsoft did, and then they built C# and said, okay, this is what we would like to have different about Java. These days, I would
I don't
imagine
hear anything.
C#
I don't know if
and
I'm the only
Java
one, but
or
I don't
neck
hear
and
the
neck
video.
in terms of features. There are a lot of job opportunities with C#.
Can you guys hear the video or no?
It was coming in and out.
These days, most
How about
of
now?
them would be working on
Yeah.
.NET
Okay.
architecture, I would
Yeah.
imagine, web apps and so forth. If you're going to do C# jobs, you're probably going to be working for larger corporations, which probably means you're going to need some sort of certification, some sort of degree to get those jobs. So if your number one goal in terms of software development is the job prospects, you have to consider what level of education that you have, and then you have to look at what they are asking for. So just look up C# jobs or .NET jobs or Unity jobs, although I think you have less of those. Most of them are going to be .NET jobs, I would imagine, with C#. And just check out, see what their job requirements are. See if they want a higher degree, etc. And then you can make your choice based on that. Now, I'll leave this video with this one thing to consider. I always emphasize, if you, for instance, decided now to learn C#.NET, you get into it, you got some basic chops with your C#, and then you decide that there's no jobs, or you just don't like this kind of programming, you want to transition to, let's say, JavaScript Node, or PHP Laravel, or Python Django or something, what have you. So you decide at some point, okay, I want to move over to something else. Did you waste all your time learning C#? Not at all, not even close, because all these modern languages, Java, C#, Python, Dart, JavaScript, PHP, Ruby, etc., 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 they're all based on the same principles. Some are closer than others, like JavaScript and C# are very close. C# and Java are super close. So, if you learn C#, you've essentially learned 80%, 85% of all those other languages I've mentioned. Really, you have. So you're not like you're missing out. You cannot lose when you learn a programming language. So I know people get a little nervous about that. Oh, am I going to choose the right stack? Am I going to choose the right language? Oh no, what am I going to do? Even if you chose a language where in your part of the world the jobs are not there, or maybe because you don't have the advanced degree, you can't get that Python AI job, doesn't matter. Everything that you learn in Python is transferable to C#, which is transferable to JavaScript, which is transferable to PHP, etc., etc., etc. So don't sweat it. So there you go. In summary, C# jobs, yeah, 219 for sure. Probably going to be in .NET, although C# is used in the Unity framework. That said, I'm guessing, depending on the area, many more .NET C# jobs than you get game development jobs. And just a last word about game development. Seems like a lot of fun, seems exciting, but the game development and coding is pretty rough and tumble in the sense that a lot of people are attracted to the idea of writing games. Seems like a lot of fun. As such, there's a lot more competition there. As such, the jobs are tougher. They work you a lot harder as a game developer. And the fact of the matter is, I have to tell you, when you're writing code, code is code is code is code. Meaning, if you're writing objects and methods, and you're building architectures for a game, versus doing this, building architectures, writing methods and functions, etc., for a web app, you're writing methods and functions when you're building architectures. It becomes the same thing. It's kind of when I was in my business, non-tech business, where I sell water purification products. And at first I got into it because I was into that whole this hobby of mine, which I won't get into here. But after a few years of doing it, I told people, I'm selling all these water purification products and all these rare fish and stuff, but at the end of the day, they're just widgets. They could be rolls of toilet paper. As far as my business was concerned, as far as my day-to-day work, they were just widgets. It was about how many units I sold, how much profit I made, whether they were, like I said, rolls of toilet paper, water purification products, didn't really matter in the end. Same thing when you're writing software. Methods are methods, functions are functions, variables are variables. It's similar to a certain extent. To a certain extent, I want to go down this rabbit hole too much. But again, let me just go back. If you find that the choice you made doesn't lead to work right away, doesn't matter, those skills that you learned in one language are transferable to the next, so don't sweat it. All right, I hope this makes sense. And if you like this video, give me a thumbs up. If you really hate it,
Okay. So that was why C#. Let's talk about what is the .NET Framework. So to understand the .NET Framework, we should travel back in the time in the early 1990s. The World Wide Web was still in its infancy. Most websites are static content. That means like page from a book, the words and the images on the page were created and then didn't change. Every user on the website saw the exact same content. Writing a software program was pretty difficult in those days. If you wanted to release software, writing a desktop application was still the main way software was created, and web applications were few and far between. Not only that, when writing a desktop application, you had to write different versions for Mac, Windows, and Linux. So in 1996, a language called Java was released and changed everything. Java, which is not JavaScript, was promoted as write once, run everywhere. For the first time, a programmer could write an application and it could run only on any operating system with Java installed. This is called cross-platform execution. Java was also powerful enough that web servers could run it to power web applications. For a time, Java was the most popular language in the world, and today it's still incredibly popular and widely used. Apple didn't really care about the spread of Java, but Microsoft cared a lot. Microsoft saw Java as a threat because it opened the door to favorite applications running on operating systems other than Windows. And if you could run your favorite programs on other operating systems, you might leave Windows. Microsoft realized that one way to fight Java is to offer developers an alternative that provided a better experience and was easier to write applications in, which led Microsoft to release .NET and C#. So .NET is a software framework for writing applications. Applications that use .NET can run on any versions of Windows, and today the .NET framework is quickly moving to be compatible with Linux. .NET offers many tools and make writing applications for Windows much quicker. This also allows you for a choice of languages, with the flagship language being C#. Microsoft direct answers to Java. So here it's C#, .NET framework, and here you can have it for Mac OS, for the Windows, and the Linux. So any operating systems that can install .NET can run your C# programs. So this means that you could write a web application on your Windows computer, then run it on a Linux web server. .NET comes built every versions of Windows servers. So the worst case scenario is the older operating might need a .NET update to run the latest version. So .NET is made up of many smaller pieces of software. For implementing web services, Microsoft offers a ASP.NET, and for connecting to database, they offers Link and Addo.NET. Both of these are part of the overall .NET universe. ASP.NET is a subject of the next course in this program. The framework class library allows C# to have access to a huge collection of standard time-saving tools. The common language runtime allows for .NET applications to run on any versions of Windows and to be written in several different languages. Because .NET is so big, it's unlikely that you'll need to use all the parts of .NET to build any one program. So here you have your .NET tools for database, .NET APIs. So here, this is important. Some of the companies ask you, are you experienced in APIs? Task-based async models, parallel link, task, parallel library, link, entity framework. So here you have your old web tools. So here this is not used. WPFs, WCF, WF, card space. This is tools for web apps. So here is very important. You have your WinForm, ASP.NET, ADO.NET. Tools for database. And here you have your standard tools, framework, class, library. You have your common language runtime, run on any different operating system. We'll be covering the standard tools, ASP.NET, link, and entity framework, but not other tools or tools not related to the web development. In the end, Java did not end up being a greater Windows killer Microsoft feared that it would become, because instead of Java, it was the rise of applications and mobile devices that changed the average person dependence on the Windows-based OS. However, the .NET Framework, C# and ASP.NET have become the standard programming tools used to build Windows-based desktop and web applications. So, key terms, when you guys are taking your exams, go ahead and try to study static content, cross-platform execution, ASP.NET, standard framework library. And then here are some great additional resources: Wired Magazine, Gates saw Java as a real threat. You gotta see this. Oh, it's got some cool stuff here. All these cookies and stuff. Okay, so Gates saw Java as a real threat. And man, Bill Gates is like a straight up monster. Publicly, Microsoft chief Bill Gates was nearly dismissive when he talked in 1996 about Sun Microsystem Java programming language. But in internal company discussion, he wrote to staff members that Java and the threat the cross-platforming technology posed on his company Windows operating system scares the hell out of me. So here, I'm gonna let you guys read the body. And it just talks about Gates and his personal and business adventures. .NET Framework Wikipedia. Definitely read this, anything on the Wikipedia. But just remember, always have a more source credible file. So .NET Framework, pronounced as .NET, is a software framework developed by Microsoft that runs primarily on Microsoft Windows. It includes a large class file called Framework Class Library, FCL, and provides language interoperability. Each language can use code written in other languages across several programming languages. Programs written for .NET Framework execute in a software environment in contrast to a hardware environment. So, software is the way. Now, if you're very experienced in hardware, that's also the way. But this is where most of the money is at. Name the Common Language Runtime, CLR. The CLR is an application virtual machine that provides services such as security, memory management, and exception handling. As such, computer code written using .NET Framework is called managed code. FCL and CLR together constitute the .NET Framework. So FCL provides a user interface, data access, database connectivity, cryptology, web application development, numeric algorithms, and network communication. So web application is very important. Programs produce softwares by combining their source code with .NET Framework and other libraries. The framework is intended to be used by most applications created for the Windows platform. Microsoft also produces an integrated IDE for .NET Framework called Visual Studio, which you guys should be downloading. And I'm just gonna let you guys read all this stuff here because it's pretty lengthy, and this is a lot of information technology. But read it; it's very good. Okay, so go ahead and additional resource 1.3 bonus lecture.net, and let's go ahead and watch this video. If the video will come up.
Hi, this is Steve, the Program Director for Web and App Development. And in this bonus video or bonus lecture, we're going to talk just a little bit more about the .NET Framework. This is optional, but if you wanted to get a little deeper understanding of .NET, this lecture is for you. So when you see a graphic like this, you probably think, what have I gotten myself into? This looks really hard. But it's not as bad as this graphic might observe. So to get started understanding .NET, you want to have a little bit of a history of how web applications and how software applications have been developed in the past, going way, way back in time. And the first thing you gotta realize is it all starts with the operating system. Not every programming language runs on every operating system in the world. And even the ones that do, the code can look really, really different when you're writing for Linux, or you're writing for Mac, or you're writing for Windows. So when you take these older languages, like the C language, which is one of the most just standard languages in the world, can be used anywhere, can be used in any operating system. Your C is going to look different depending on which operating system it gets used in. Same with the C++ language. It can look really different when you're writing C++ on a Windows machine versus writing on a Linux machine. And then that creates all type of problems where, I gotta have one version of my code for Windows and one version of my code for Linux, and it's just a headache with these older languages. So the beauty of .NET is that it says, hey, we don't have to worry about this so much. We're just going to give you one language, C#, and we're going to give you the .NET Framework, and you're going to be able to write some code on these systems without having to worry too much about the complexity of that operating system behind it. So it simplifies things. And for a very long time, .NET was confined to just solving the problems of different versions of Windows. So older versions of .NET did not run on Linux, did not run on Mac, and all they did was they kind of hid whether you were running on Windows XP or Windows 7 or Windows 2000 or Windows Server. You didn't have to worry about those details. You just used the .NET Framework. But in the last several years, Microsoft has expanded and said, no, not just Windows anymore. .NET, we're going to take it to Linux, we're going to take it to Mac, and now it doesn't matter which OS you're working on. If you have the .NET Framework installed, it's going to install C#, and you're going to kind of be able to write your code without worrying about all of the complexity of the operating system. So really, this is just all about simplifying things and making it easier to write code that works across many different systems. And then, so once you get past the common language runtime, you get into all of these niche tools that they have provided over the years to help web developers. And it's not always clean. Some of these tools, get older and get obsolete and get replaced with new tools. So when we're in the C# course, we're going to be spending a lot of time with the framework class library, or what I just like to call the standard library, the standard tools. These are all of these little quirks of the language and syntax that you can use so that you can easily do things like work with an array or write to a file or anything like that, so you're not reinventing the wheel. So we'll be spending a lot of time as we learn C# looking at the standard tools. and the standard namespaces that are used in .NET Framework and C#. Not in the C# course, but in the next course, we will knock out ASP.NET. That is our all of our tools for the web. So we're going to learn the standard tools, and then we're going to learn the tools that are very specific to web development. Along the way, as you can see in this chart, there are older tools and older APIs that we have kind of just been thrown away, or not thrown away. We still see them, like they're just a legacy way of doing things, like ADO.NET and Windows Common Language Framework. They've sort of just being replaced out by newer, better, and simpler things. So we're going to teach you the newest way. We're going to teach you Link and Entity Framework. These are tools for working with databases, how to connect to databases, and how to sort of tie everything together. And they are the latest and greatest way of doing things. So yes, it is possible for you to do things in other ways. It's possible to use other tools to accomplish the same task. It's possible to write web applications and not use .NET and use some other language and framework entirely, and all that's out there. But just learning this way is it's a lot to take in. So you will. The good news is that when you learn this, you learn end to end. It's not going to be that different if you go somewhere else and you do pick up another language or you pick up another framework. You don't use ASP.NET, maybe you use Node.js. The concepts are the same. So while things may change, you're going to find that it's all kind of the same at the end of the day, and that, hey, you already know 80% of it if you know .NET. So you'll be able to put on your resume that you're a .NET developer, that you're a .NET web developer. Basically, you're going to be up to speed on C# ASP.NET and the .NET Framework. And like I said, you get out there and you get a year of experience under your belt. You'll find that, hey, someone wants you to write a web app, but they want you to write it in Python Django. It's not a huge leap to do that. So hopefully this just kind of helps you not feel so intimidated when you see something like this in this picture. We are going to go through all the relevant parts, and we'll go through them one by one. And through this class and the next class, this is all leading up to building this bridge between our front-end HTML, our back-end SQL, and these components that you see here are going to bridge everything out so that we can push data back and forth from web pages to databases and use all the tools here. All right, hope that helps kind of shed light on the big picture of what we're doing, and hope this makes you understand a little bit more about .NET. Best of luck to you in this course, and we will be talking to you soon.
All right. Okay, let's talk about Visual Studio Code or Visual Studio overview. So, just how I talked about earlier, you guys should have this downloaded while we're doing the lecture. So Visual Studio is a Microsoft flagship integrated development IDE, which is all your stuff that you guys are coding and programming. In early classes, we use VS Code, a small text editor that's great for web apps. Visual Studio is a big brother that comes packed in with a massive amount of features, tools, packages, and almost anything you could dream of to write software. So for larger applications and web applications, developers use Visual Studio. So a lot of times in school, they don't ever give you an IDE to work with, but most of the developers and programmers that I know use Visual Studio just because you could develop like mobiles, apps, and anything else on here. So go ahead and download the Visual Studio Code 2019 Community Edition. This is free. You can use any Microsoft account, including a personal account if you already have one. If you don't have a Microsoft account, you should register one by signing up at the link below. So go ahead and go to this website right here. And then here you guys will create a Microsoft account. If you already do have one, just sign in. And then you just go through the process of entering all your data and information. So if you don't have Visual Studio Code already, go ahead and download it here. So here's your installer, and go down to Community 2019, and then click on it, and then this should be popped up. I think it's right here, VS Community, and depending on your network, it might take you half an hour to an hour to download it. So now I gotta restart my computer because I just updated, but I'm just gonna put not now. And so yeah, I'm gonna finish this lesson, restart it, and then I'm gonna see where everybody's at. Okay. All right, let's talk about your GitHub. So GitHub is a good place for source control, version control, and turning in assignments. So GitHub is an online platform that lets us save our code online. GitHub is one of the most popular code repository in the world. Hundreds of thousands of web and software developers upload code they wrote in GitHub. Some of the reasons to use GitHubs are you can share your work with others, show off your code you ran to potential employers, collaborate with others online to work on a project, control different versions of your code, browse GitHub for examples and tutorials, download someone else's code to solve a problem, back up your work in case your computer crashes. So GitHub, to me, is fairly one of those new, technologies that you guys could just, check out other people's work, download to your computer, and then go ahead and modify it to your liking. And there's like games you could download, math, all those stuff that you guys could do. We strongly encourage you to set up your own GitHub account for this course. The account is free, and you will be able to permanently save your coursework and share online example work you completed. So one of the I use GitHub for a master project I did. It has to deal with artificial intelligence and machine learning, and a lot of AIs and stuff like that are on GitHub. But don't remember to focus on most of your coursework, and then if you have time, then go ahead and venture out. But I want you guys to make sure you guys are always studying C#. So our C# assignments will often include multiple files. It's going to be easier to work with our code in this class on GitHub. So all of our source code examples are stored on Github account managed by your programmer director, which is Steve. To view the course files, browse to this site. So here you just go to Steve's or our solution. Here we'll have all the files for your C#. And this is how you do it. You could clone and download. So here you could just open in desktop, download as a zip. Mainly I'll just like download it to a zip because it's faster, right? And then after you do that, you have your SD104 master zip, and then you could just extract it to your downloads, right? So here, where to go? You could just have all your solutions, and the cool part is this only takes about, let me see, about 10 megabytes, right? And you guys know, like, your thumb drive could take over gigabytes. So this is just a small little file you guys could download. So this is cool. This is neat. Make sure you don't upload things that are like over 1 gigabyte to GitHub, because there's no reason for you to do that. These are just meant for small little projects and small little files. Anything bigger than that, just keep it in your own storage. Okay, so click and clone or download button to download the copies of your course file to your local computer to work with. Sign up for GitHub. Go ahead and make your GitHub account. It's free. You have several ways to upload your work on GitHub. Drag your files to your PC to the GitHub website. Download Git. I talked to you guys about Git before. So here, just go to gitforwindows.org, download it. I already have mine downloaded. And then once you guys have it downloaded, it's more like a terminal for your computer. So here I have Git Bash and Git for Windows. This is Git for Windows and this is Git Bash. So go ahead and download that. So download Git for Windows and use the graphic user interface tool. Download the Git for Windows and use the command line. Advanced, download the GitHub extensions for Visual Studio 2019 Sync from inside the Visual Studio app. This is very important. So I'm gonna have this saved. So go ahead and do that. All four works. We recommend you download explore for Git for Windows tool. Video tutorial on how to get started with GitHub. In your Canvas course file, we create 2 videos to help you get started with GitHub. So here, the 1.5 GitHub full video will slowly walk you through installing and using GitHub and give full explanations of Git and version control. The 1.5 GitHub Quick is a short version to quickly show each step using Git. So turning in assignments, we ask you to turn assignments in this course. We want you to upload your source code to GitHub. Then in school websites to get credit, you'll simply post your URL to your GitHub code for instructors to review. So this is just one of the potential way that we're trying to give you guys potentials for employees to look at your GitHub. So it's good to put in your resume that you have a GitHub, and employers are gonna definitely look at your GitHub and they're gonna see what kind of projects you guys been working on. And this is a great way to go ahead and just show all your projects you guys been doing, because they're gonna be like, oh, okay, he has acknowledged in C#. And most of the time, the people that's gonna reviewing these are people with like less technical knowledge, people like technical recruiters, account managers, and they're just gonna be like, oh, I see C# in their website. I'm gonna go ahead and turn it over to the hiring manager. And then once you guys get to the hiring manager, that's when you guys gotta make sure you guys study beforehand, make sure you guys up all night figuring out what the company model is, and get ready when he start asking you like, well, how to write a function on how to do parallel programming with 2 source files. And then there you'll just go ahead and just do like an optimization code with time complexity. So here, 1.5 GitHub full video, 1.5 GitHub quick video. Let's go ahead and watch the full video. I don't know if they're the same, but
Hi, this is Steve, the program director for ACT's web development program. In this video tutorial, we are going to get you up to speed on how to use GitHub. So what is GitHub? It is the world's largest online platform for code versioning, code control, code sharing. It is a skill kind of all into itself that employers look for, in that you know how to manage your code, along with manage your code in a team environment. You use GitHub a lot when you are working collaboratively with more than one developer. We're going to be using GitHub in this course because it's a good skill to learn, and it's going to make everything just a little bit easier for us as far as working with our files and turning work in to your instructor. So we're going to go over the basics. It's not going to take too long. The first thing we're going to point out is that we have a GitHub account that holds all of the course files for this C# course. And you're going to find us on github.com at webdev, and you'll see an SD104. So this is the address, github.com /actwebdev/SD104. When you come here, this is the page you're going to see, and all of the code that we show you in this class is going to be here. So you're going to be able to download it and look at it, use it on your computer. We have the solutions for the lab assignments here as well. So if you get stuck on a particular lab, you can see the way that we solved the lab, the way that we implemented the code. Not necessarily the only way that you might, complete a solution for an assignment, but it's just kind of a guideline for how we did it. So in order to get all of these files onto your computer, if you just want to go ahead and get a copy of them right away, you can come to the address github.com/actwebdev/SD104, and you can just use this color download button, and you can choose download zip, and this is going to download all of every single one of our code examples, code projects for you to use. So you get them all at once if you do that. Once you have them, you're able to open that zip, and let's get this here. So once you download them to your computer, you'll have them all. You can go into any of them. We'll go into lesson 5. And to open it in Visual Studios, you just click the Visual Studio Solution file. It's always the first file in the folder. And Visual Studios will open. And it will open up to the code. Now, another thing that you can do when you're viewing this code, so this is going to let you edit the code and let you run it inside Visual Studios. Another thing you can do on GitHub is you can simply browse through GitHub. You can go into any of these code folders and you can drop them in there, and you can actually just see the raw source code. So right there on GitHub, this is the source code that is part of this project. So easy enough, like I said, anytime that you're asked to look at code examples or anytime you need a solution, you can just come to our GitHub and you can grab the file straight off of here. Very easy to do, and there's nothing really fancy about that. For your own work, so you will get started at a point where you need to turn some work in, and you're going to create a Visual Studios project. It's going to be easier for your instructor and for you, and it's also just going to be a benefit to you to upload this work that you do to GitHub. So the first thing that you want to do, if you haven't done it already, is you'll be able to sign up for an account at github.com/join, and this account is free. There are subscriptions, so as you sign up, it will say, hey, do you want to spend $5 a month to get all these extra features? You don't need those features, don't do it. Just sign up for the free account, and you'll have your own username, your own password, your email address. This is basically going to be your little personal place to store your code. So make sure you do that. There's a lot of good reasons for you to sign up as a GitHub account and put your work on GitHub. You'll be able to save it forever. You'll have it after the course ends. You'll be able to put it on your resume and say, hey employer, you can go to my GitHub. I've got this available, and you can see the kinds of work that I've been doing. You can download it. It's basically your sharing. So your first step is you're going to want to go through here and make sure that you've created your GitHub account. Once you've done that, you have your GitHub account created. One of the first things you're going to do is you're going to create a GitHub repository. So this is what your main account page of GitHub should look like. You're going to see your username, you're going to see your profile, and you're going to see this link to repositories. So a repository is just a GitHub project. So just think of it like I'm starting a new project, and I'm going to need a repository on GitHub. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to click this new button, and I will call this my GitHub project, and I can give it a name, my first GitHub project. And we want to leave it public because we want anybody to be able to see this. We definitely want your instructor to be able to see it. And we can just go ahead and click create repository. All right, and you're gonna have this address here. It'll say you'll have your information, name of your project set up. So you're gonna need this link, so pay attention to it. And the next step is, okay, how are we going to upload work that we do into our GitHub project? There are a lot of different ways to do this. One of the simplest way is a drag and drop. But that's a little messy, so we're going to kind of show you a different way. There are two different tools that you can use. There's a tool called Git for Windows, and then there's also a tool called GitHub Extensions for Visual Studio 2019. So there's 3 or 4 different ways to do it. We're not going to show you the easiest way, but we're also not going to show you the hardest way. We're going to kind of pick the middle ground here so that you can get an understanding of what GitHub's doing and how it all works, but we're not going to go over the command line and the advanced way of doing it. We're just going to kind of take the middle approach here. So the middle approach here is that we're going to use this Git for Windows, and I'll show you the stuff. So you need to look for Git for Windows, and you come to this site, Git for Windows, and you need to download this tool. Let's see. If you're wondering why it's called Git, it's because the name of the protocol that transfers files back and forth, and that kind of makes the magic that makes it all happen. It's the Git protocol, so it's called Git. And once it's downloaded, we are going to install this on our computer. And I'm going to walk you through and ask quite a few questions. We're going to go through them one by one. So, icon on the desktop, we can leave all of these as default. So we'll just say, okay, we're going to do all of our defaults. Program folder, we'll leave it at Git. We'll hit next. Default text editor to use for Git. I don't recommend, it's going to default to Vim. I do not recommend it. You're probably going to be most comfortable using Visual Studio Code. So again, you can pick something else. Notepad++ also isn't bad. I'm going to pick Visual Studio Code because that is the one that you have used in prior classes. So we're going to choose that. Next question. This is about adjusting settings on your computer, and you definitely don't want to mess with this, but you're going to leave it at the recommended setting of what it wants to do to make these adjustments, so you're going to hit next. We can use the default transport, so there's nothing right here. Let's use this. This one, kind of up to you. I think we will leave this, since we aren't doing any Unix systems. We would do this check out as is, commit as is, because everything we're doing is on Windows. And this one we can leave as default as well. It's not going to make a huge difference because we aren't going to do a whole lot of command on this. Leave all of these defaults, just going to go on through, and we would be ready to install in no time. Okay, so now we have Git installed, and now we're going to, what we're going to do is we're going to get work, and we're going to get code from our computer, and we're going to push it up into this GitHub website. So how are we going to do that? Well, the first thing we want to do is we're going to, let's just create a brand new Visual Studio project. So let me back out of this, and we just start at the very beginning. And what we want to do is we're going to open up Visual Studios 2019. And we will say we're going to create a new project. We will create a console application using the .NET Core Framework. So we're going to choose that right there. Let's give this a name. We'll call this GitHub demo. And hit create. All right, so we've got a Visual Studio project open, and we've got a default project here with a file called program.cs. And just to kind of demonstrate what we're going to do here is we can go to project, and we can say add a new item. And we'll just add a text file. We're not going to worry about any code right now. We're going to just add a text file. We will call this text file readme and say add. And we will say, we'll just type in here, this is my GitHub tutorial. And we'll click save. All right. The next step, which is very important to do, if you forget this, you will get an error a little bit later as you keep moving forward. So what we want to do is we want to say file, add to source control. So it's up here, file, add to source control. Give this a click, and you will get this little message that says, okay, a new Git repository has been created for you. If you forget to do this step, you're going to get an error on that step. So you just got to make sure that you say add to source control. Okay, so with that done, what we've got is we've got a new Visual Studio project. That project has a file called program.cs with a little bit of code. It's also got a README text file. So now we're ready to upload this to GitHub. So what we're going to do next is we're going to go into our Git GUI. And we will click on open an existing repository. So we need to click right here, open an existing repository. We need to click browse. We need to scroll down to a folder that you'll see here called the source folder. Visual Studio is going to put all the code that we write into this source folder. So I'm going to click source. I'm going to click repos. And you'll see a list of any other Visual Studio projects that have been created. Now, I've got quite a few on my computer because I've been making some. If you've downloaded the course projects, then you might see them here too. So I'm going to choose the GitHub demo, and I'm going to say select folder. All right. Next up, so this is the user interface for the GitHub for Windows tool, and we basically got it pointed at our Visual Studio project. Okay, so if you're still not quite sure what's going on, what we've got here is we've got a Visual Studio's project with these files. We've got a GitHub software that's now pointed to this group of files. And lastly, what we need to do is we need to tell it that it's going to upload whatever we have in this project to the GitHub website. So to do that, we're going to click on Remote. We're going to click on Add. We give this a friendly name. I will call this my GitHub project. And here is where we needed, so if we come back to our I'm creating a GitHub repository, public create. Alright, so what we want to do now is let's take a quick look at this GitHub window, this Git GUI window. So the window is divided up into these kind of sections that show you what this first window here shows you what has changed since the last time that you scanned your code in. And then this down here, this is what you will commit to. Basically, what are you going to allow and update? So right now, this doesn't really make a lot of sense because it's not showing us anything, and that's because there's nothing that's changed in our project. So all we want to do here is we're just going to click push. It will say, well, what do you want to do here? We're going to push to my GitHub project. We're just going to hit push again. Okay, and we should get a successful message. And now when we go back to our GitHub, we hit refresh. What you're going to see is that now the files from Visual Studio from this project are now uploaded to GitHub. So we've got our program.cs and we've got our readme.txt. And if we look here, we'll see, this is the C# code. So let's just kind of walk through this. We're going to do it a couple of times and make sure you got the hang of it and see it in action. So what we'll do is we will make some changes to our readme file. We'll say this is a new line of text in my project. And we'll say this is line 3. Right, and we're going to save this. And now when we come back over to our Git GUI, we can say rescan for any changes. And now up here, this is gonna make sense. It's gonna say, hey, the README text file has changed, and basically this little plus symbol says, hey, this line's been added. This line's been added. Okay, so now we know exactly what's changed in the README file. We're going to click Stage Changes next. Let's go ahead and pull this change in. And so now it's going to move
from this window down to this window, saying this is what we're going to do. We're going to say an example of change management. That's just going to be our little comment. We're going to say commit this. Okay, it's been committed. And then we're going to say push and push again. Alright, we wait for our little success message, and now we hit refresh on our GitHub page, and you'll see that our README file has updated and it now has our new code in it. We could do the same thing over here. So let's go to our program. Again, let's not worry too much about what type of code we're writing or where we're writing. This is just to show that I can write new lines of code. I'm going to say updated and push to GitHub. And again, I gotta hit save here and hit the save button. Come back into the tool and we're going to say rescan. And once again, it's going to say, okay, now this time I see that program CS has changed. I see that you added this line in green here. This is new code. Okay, so now we're going to click stage change. We're going to add a comment, updated. I'm going to say commit. I'm going to say push. Alright, we're going to say close. We're going to come back here. We're going to hit refresh on our GitHub website. We're going to come into Program CS. And there is our change. So what's going on is that we are writing code in Visual Studios, and then using the Git tool, we are detecting our changes, and then we are pushing them up to our GitHub website. And what we have here is a place where we can send people to and say, here is our project. This is the current final version or the good version that I'm sharing with the world. And anybody who comes here can come to this project. They can see all of our files. They can download our files. They can use our files. So we're sharing our code. We're managing our code. We're managing changes to our code. And this is how this is going to be the easiest way for us to share the work that we do in this class with our instructor. So I'm going to make a shorter video following this that just doesn't, it's not so long, doesn't explain all this, and we'll just go step by step again in case you just want to see a quick version of this. But hopefully you understand what's going on here. We're basically able to write our code and then push our code up to the internet for it to be shared, to be collaborated with, people download it, and basically very, very easy for us to say, hey, instructor, I want you to go review my code. The instructor can just get the link to your GitHub, look at it online. That's all that they need, and then they'll be able to give you a grade for your assignment. So you definitely want to have all of your code that you're writing getting pushed up to GitHub. When you submit something through Canvas, so when we're talking about on a lesson and you're going to submit, all you need to do when you complete it is you can just turn in the link to your GitHub project. And you turn that in on Canvas, instructor can view it, instructor will grade it, and you guys are done. So hopefully this makes sense. I'm going to make a shorter video just again that has all these steps done kind of very quickly without a lot of talking. So, all right. Best of luck to you in your course, and we will talk to you later.
All right, so Steve just had a great video about GitHub and the source control. And what that is when your Visual Studio Code, when you're doing all that coding and you're pushing over to your server over at GitHub, there's a connection there. If you guys do like a class in networking, there's like a TCP and IP that basically it's just transmitting data back and forth. And with GitHub and Visual Studio, It's one of the best apps that could do that because number one, it's free. Number two, it's the programmers behind it, you know, use a lot of coding to create that. So I thought that was pretty neat about what that was going on when he was doing that source control. And then right behind it, you guys could also do version control, which is whatever that's not saved will just be backed up as a file. So if you do commit to a code that you didn't want, you could go ahead and pull back and then redo your file. So that happens a lot in companies where sometimes the code that you wanted didn't come out expectedly, so you had to go back and reassess all your codes and debug it. And GitHub is one of the best place for that. Um, so let's go ahead and talk about your verified Visual Studio Code. So after this, I gotta restart the computer just to have this thing up. So install, test, and Visual Studio Code. So spend the rest of the class making sure that Visual Studio Code is installed properly on your workstation and ready to use. Remember, you need the following. Go ahead, these are your main bullet points. Have Visual Studio 2019 Community Edition, have a Microsoft account, make sure ASP.NET and web components were selected for install. Need to make sure .NET desktop development was selected for install. And every time you guys download one of your IDEs, make sure your development is always clicked because that just gives you development options. You should use the options to create C#, .NET Core console application, and C# ASP.NET Core applications when starting a new project. Make sure you can create a new console applications and run the default Hello World program created by default. Okay, so that's gonna be your 1.6. Go ahead and get at it, and I'm gonna go ahead and restart my computer. All right.